The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday.
Oh, no, not again. Another Friday?
Another Friday. Yep.
Well, the first thing we're going to address is the amazing action of the President of the United States against Syria yesterday. Approximately 60 Tomahawk missiles sent into a Syrian airbase in retaliation or in response to the chemical attacks on the Syrian citizens. Already the libtards are saying, what's this president doing? He's going to take us into war. He acted without approval of Congress. This gets to be very questionable at times. And I have to say, very clearly, the U.S. strike, nobody can get the story right. I've got stories that say 59. I've got stories that say 60. I wish that some of these people would get exactly how many happened. What we do know is the missiles were fired from the USS Ross and the USS Porter, and they sent to the government-controlled airbase at Shayrat, Syria. The missiles targeted the bases, airstrips, hangars, control tower, and ammunition areas. Trump ordered the strikes without approval from Congress or the backing of the United Nations. U.S. officials said he had the right to use force to defend national interests and to protect citizens from atrocities. And I do agree, the use of sarin gas and chlorine gas on the citizens of Syria was an atrocity.
An extreme and heinous act, because the use of chemical and biological warfare has been outlawed basically since the end of the First World War. And we all know how, well, we don't all know because they don't teach much history anymore.
No, I know.
But for those people who do study it, how horrific the First World War was because of the use of chemical and gas agents. It's just, look, there's no war is it's pretty. It's an immoral, and that's what always really disturbs me. They try to put a moral spin on war. Well, until we understand that all war is immoral, and there are always there's always collateral damage,
right?
Friendly fire, civilians killed, but to use chemical weapons in areas like this, and this article that we're reading also talks. This has happened before, outside of Damascus,
2013,
and Obama was supposed to do something, and then he got weak in the knees when Congress started whining and everybody started. But and they're talking about it's gonna pull us into the war with Syria. This has got nothing to do with the civil war in Syria. I'm not in favor of being the policeman of the world. We shouldn't be over there fighting everybody else's battles. They've got a civil war over there. Russia's backing them, and that's what's happened. These little urine ant countries that would never ever attempt this kind of stuff,
right,
are only doing it because they're backed by Russia, or they're looking for backing from us. And this is the reason these countries that we could turn into a parking lot in about a half an hour if we really wanted to.
Well, that's interesting.
Have the courage to do this kind of stuff, and I think we have a moral obligation. When they do something this reprehensible, if Russia's going to support that civil war, that I believe the body count in this civil war is up around 400,000.
Correct.
And 400,000, that's nearly 500,000 people have been killed in this Syrian civil war. And we haven't done anything, as we haven't done.
And you mentioned about backing, And this, the Syrian government, Assad, is currently backed by the Russian government and by Iran.
Yep.
Now, what's very interesting is the president was having a meeting down in Florida with Chinese President Xi
Yeah, good luck.
Jinping. Yeah, good luck saying that, right? Xi Jinping. And this could be taken by China, you know, as another pressing U.S. security dilemma, because North Korea is a problem and China's not doing anything about it. So maybe China's going to look at this and say, look at this. They got a new guy in the bullpen here, and he's not going to play any games. He's not afraid of unilaterally military steps, even if China's involved. But, you know, I think the quote from the president, this clearly indicates the president is willing to take decisive action when called for.
Yeah, and you know, he better be, and I applaud the action, not only on a moral basis, because nobody should be allowed to use gas,
Right.
and gas women and children. You know, war is horrific enough without adding this thing. This is the reason it was outlawed after the First World War. But these people have no value on human life. They've proven it time and time again. But as I said, you know, I watched probably for 3 hours this morning coverage of this stuff, and it's just, you listen to it and you want to shake your head. They're talking about, like this article says, oh, we're going to be pulled into the Syrian civil. We're not going to be pulled into the Syrian civil war. The fact is, there's a Syrian civil war because of Russia.
Right.
If Russia wasn't backing us, and you know, and of course, but the other countries really irrelevant. Russia's the big, you know, the big gun here. If they were not backing Assad, this civil war would have been done long ago. And you know, and now they're also talking about North Korea. Oh, maybe this will help North Korea. Well, hopefully it does. But there were also talks about, well, you know, they're saying if something like this happens in North Korea, they're going to pour across the 38th parallel again, like they did in the first Korean War, you know, and start. Look, there's nobody that knows anything about anything thinks they're going to come across the 38th again, like they did before, in human waves. With the military technology that we have today, if they come out in an open area, they'll annihilate the entire North Korean army in 15 minutes, just like they did with the Iran, with the tanks in Iran, and you know.
If it even takes 15 minutes.
Yeah, if it takes 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, which the point of that statement is not to diminish the importance of what's happening here, but it's to explain that the reality is, if North Korea starts a war, there is a very high probability he is going to use nukes, because you can't fight a ground war anymore over there like they did. You're not going to have the Chosun Reservoir. We're not going to have the battles we had in the first Korean War, where they sent 1 million Red Chinese and North Koreans down the side of a hill. Some of them didn't even have weapons, and they won a few battles because the United Nations forces ran out of bullets, and they overran them. That doesn't happen anymore. We've got gunships, helicopter gunships. We've got gunships with Gatling guns mounted that can lay so much fire down in an open area that they'll wipe everything out that within a 1 square inch. It's not going to happen. He's not going to send his entire army across the 38th parallel. They're going to start lobbing missiles. This is why it's so important. And I'm glad that we have a president that once has said, listen, there are lines you better not cross, otherwise we're going to hold you accountable. I'm not sure if it'll work on North Korea. I think it may help in Syria, because, you know, Russia can rattle its saber all they want. They don't want a war with us either.
I hear. Hey, you know, but the thing is, you know, when this president took office, they were screaming, "Oh, Russia got him in, and you know he's got this great tie with Russia, and you know Russia's trying to take over America." Well, I guess that idea is out the window now, because Trump and Putin are at opposite ends of the spectrum here. As a matter of fact, Russia keeps exercising its veto authority in the UN on everything to put sanctions in place against Damascus. So, I mean, what do you do? What do you do?
Yeah, well, and that's the problem. The problem is, and with this, and the other thing, when I was watching the coverage this morning, I'm listening to the Democrats whining about, this is an act of war, this is an act, but it's a catch-22. If he did nothing, the same senators would be crying about him allowing this crime against humanity, basically, this violation of every moral, and ethical code that we have, something that it's not like we don't know the effects of gas warfare. We saw it in World War I. That's the reason that it was outlawed, because of the damage it did to people. And the fact that these people don't really care about human life and their enemies. This isn't the Napoleonic era where they had a battle during the day and they all broke for lunch, and then they went back and had one in the afternoon, and in the evening they all went back, and then they could come to the center of the battlefield and give them their sword, and then they were all allowed to go home. Those days are long gone. And war is back to the way it was during the era of, the Roman legions. They slaughtered everybody in front of them, and there was no value on human life. And if you allow a nation like this to use gas on their own people, it won't be long before they're using gas on other people. It's that simple.
It is. And it's interesting because of all the people, the Turks actually came out and said they will do whatever is necessary to stop this. So,
yeah, of course, because the Turks don't want them using, look.
They don't want a bomb coming over the
country. Almost every country, except obviously the countries that are aligned with Syria and some maybe with North Korea. Virtually 90% of the countries in the UN have come out and they applauded the actions of the United States. So when I see American senators decrying this thing, because I know they're being hypocrites. The fact is that if he did nothing, they would whine. Or maybe they wouldn't whine because that's what their president did. When we had a Democratic president, he drew a line in the sand, but then he didn't have enough courage to maintain that. And a man once said, "Words without deeds are worthless weeds."
Exactly.
And this is the problem. And I think maybe that. This is sending a message. What happens, happens, because we can't allow this kind of thing to be done to any person, and even someone who was a radical. I remember a quote, I'm paraphrasing because I'll never say it's an exact quote now because I don't have it in front of me. But a man who was considered a radical at the time, Malcolm X. And he said, "I'm for justice no matter who it's for." And that's very good. Justice is justice. Just because that justice is for someone you dislike does not make it right, does not make it wrong. It's right. He said, "I am for justice no matter who it's for." And what was done to these rebels, whether you support their position in this civil war or not, was wrong. I mean, that would be like if they had sarin gas during the Civil War for us to gas half the United States because we were fighting. Some of them were brothers fighting brothers and cousins fighting cousins, and and it was bad enough we lost over almost 58,000 people at Gettysburg, all of whom were Americans. Civil war is never pretty. And, the fact is that, and now to add this to it is just, like I said, it's just reprehensible. I wouldn't have, you know, I know McCain wanted to bomb all the airstrips, and you know, because he wants to bomb everything anyway. But you know, I don't fault him for that. You know, you know, I'm glad I don't have the finger on the button, because I would have pressed it.
Well, now we know not to elect you president.
That's right.
Or maybe we should.
I wouldn't run. That's because I know my limitations. I don't have any tolerance for this stuff. You know, Assad's regime would have been out a long time ago.
I
would
hear
have
you.
sent a couple special ops teams to take them out, you know, and then let Russia, you know, put its money where its mouth is. If they want to go, they wanted to go with us, let them go with us, you know. But I
Yeah.
really don't think they want to. You know, these major powers really don't want to destroy. Russia's economy's collapsed once already. They're beginning to rebuild it a little bit. The last thing they need is a war with the United States.
Exactly. Hey, Fall River unemployment rate, again, we're the top of the region.
Speaking of economies, again, the Fall River unemployment rate
Number
continues to rise.
one in the worst things in the world, 8.5%. Now, you know, they did list other communities as being higher, such as Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, Edgartown, Monroe, and Nantucket. Nantucket was tied with Monroe at 11. Provincetown's at 24.8. But is somebody missing something there? Why is their unemployment rate so high in February? Why is it so high in March?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Nobody's there.
That's right.
It's a tourist community. It's a summer community. Memorial Day to Labor Day. Actually, now Columbus Day. You'll see unemployment rates at like 0.1%. So let's compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, not apples to pineapples.
And how many people are in Truro and Provincetown?
About 3,000 apiece off season.
So
Yeah.
there you go. So obviously your employment rate will be high, even if you've only got like 25 people unemployed.
Exactly.
It's going to be a higher percentage.
Right.
because
But you know,
of
when
a
you look
lower
at the
number.
fact that Fall River only has 39,000 people who work out of 44,000. So I think the number may be wrong, and it's actually more. It's 88,000 people in Fall River. So you have 39,000 people who work. That's less than half. That's less than half. You wonder why we have a median income of 24 grand?
Well, you know, but see, that's the other thing. We look at some of these other cities, and some of these are seasonal, others are fluctuating. They've had times where they have unemployment. But Fall River has consistently had one of the highest unemployment rates in the state of Massachusetts, if not the highest unemployment rate in the state of Massachusetts, which proves one thing beyond the shadow of a doubt. None of the economic development incentives that we've had over the past 20 years have done one bit
Exactly.
of good. That's the problem. You see, let's not just look at the rate and bemoan the rate. What does this rate mean? This rate means that all these fancy, you know, the initiatives that we created and did all these studies, yet, like I said, here we are again in Fall River, making all the study groups rich. Everybody talking a good game on how they want to help, and we're trying to reinvent the wheel again. Listen, Germany has done it for years. They've had an apprenticeship program. They've had partnerships with businesses. Rhode Island's doing it now. They've done it for a while. A couple of years ago, they announced a situation that they were going to train people. At the time, it was in welding, and they were training, I don't know how many people, a lot of people in welding to go, because they had to deal with electric boat. You know, these are the kind of things that work. We need to get jobs in that require, you know, not a PhD. And we also need to have these types of programs and incentives with employers. We have to go around to area employers and say, listen, what do you need? We don't have any more manufacturing jobs. We never will. We're not going to compete against Bangladesh. We're not going to compete against these other countries. what we need to do is begin to train our people, not to a PhD level, but in trades and in medium tech, and give them the skills to work in what we can bring to this country. You know, I mean, we're not going to beat Bangladesh and Vietnam for factory work anymore. Those people work for, like, I don't know, 17 cents an hour if they get paid at all. It's not going to happen. But they also don't have the capability to do medium tech. Most of those people in that country, those countries are barely literate if they are literate. They're not going to be able to do the types of jobs that we can bring back and sustain in the United States. And Fall River will never have an employment rate until we get people involved and funnel them into areas where we can train them to move into these jobs. And of course, the other big part of that is we've also got to get rid of people who don't want to work in Fall River, because when we continue to import people who don't want to work, we're going to have 39,000 out of 88,000, you know, that are working. Of course, we have a very high percentage of retirees in this city too. We're not going to forget that. But the reality is, look, Fall River has always been right in the top in unemployment, which goes to prove that nothing they've done, with all the talk about how they're going to jobs, that's the mantra. Every time we get an election cycle, it's jobs, jobs, jobs. I'm going to work to get people employed. And they'll point to Amazon, which has got, I don't know, 1 billion employees. And what do they got, 14 from Fall River? You know, I mean, and even that, you know, we have to ask why. Has anybody done a really, really good study into why we could not get more people into Amazon? Was it lack of education? Was it lack of resume? You know, and why can't we do it? I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to drive a forklift around Amazon. So, you know, the kind of things that really work are not being done. And it's not like they haven't been done in other places. I mean, Germany has virtually no problems at all. They've been doing this for decades. Germany's got one of the best educational systems in the world. They look at their students, they test their students. If they're not college material and can't be trained, they put them into a vocational program, they're taught a skill, and they go into the job market, and they do an apprenticeship, and they work. And I know this because I've talked to German exchange students who are horrified by the fact that in the United States, people are allowed to go to college just to waste time. And they ask, why do they go to college if they have no intention of finishing or actually getting a degree in something that they can use? And,
why bother?
But, I mean, you know, this is the thing. But, you know, at a glance, Fall River unemployment continues to rise. And they try to water it down by bringing in, you know, apples and oranges. But the fact is, I would like to see the last 20 years where Fall River ranked in the state for unemployment, and I want you to show me another city that's even close. And if there is a city that's even close, it's going to be Lawrence or New Bedford or another city that's economically depressed. It's not going to be Provincetown or Toro. And you know, this is the whole thing. The whole thing is, this is an indictment on our political policies to bring jobs into this city again. You know, again, we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the state.
Yep. Well, I got, you know, and OJT works wonders. The state agency took over the management of the Fall River State Pier. I love this because the mayor and the Fall River Line Pier Company, which I'm wondering what kind of joke that is, decided to go down to the 5-day PortCon 2017 conference. Guess what, taxpayer? The mayor wasted your money down there. And Mayor Jason Correa said he knew the state was looking at the pier, but didn't know until recently of the change of state oversight. Well, I guess the mayor got stuck really bad with this one because
I guess
now
his
mass
buddy
development's
Charlie
taking it.
didn't tell him, huh?
But let me ask you something. I'm going to read you some names. Gilbert Oliveira Jr., Michael B. Lund, Kara O'Connell, Michelle Paul, Robert Bogan, Donald Church, Brian Gettings, David Hebert, Bruce Morrow, and Scott Monroe, and Mark Veloza. They sound a little interesting to you? Familiar?
Oh, of course, they all have vested interests in that area.
Yep. Well, the Fall River Line Pier Incorporated is a nonprofit, Chapter 180 company, which has been governing the State Pier. So all those people have been against moving the State Pier, and I can't say allegedly against. Let's correct this. Allegedly against using this for short sea shipping. We have one company doing it. They've reached capacity. Why didn't they ever work to develop this? No, they want to put in an auditorium. The mayor went down there. The deepest port in the state, you want to put an auditorium. Yeah, that's real economic development. Real, true economic development. So, according to the Office of the State Auditor, the Fall River Line Pier Board of Directors oversees the property and operations of the State Pier with a general manager who answers to the board. The organization leased the pier from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in a 50-year lease agreement, which ended April 2014. Local participation with the future of the pier would still be welcomed by MassDevelopment, he said. The Commonwealth State Piers play key roles in growing the maritime economy and supporting regionally significant fishing, shipping, and tourism activities. Baker in the statement, by ensuring that each state pier is operating as effectively as possible, this transition will address critical near-term needs in our ports and provide a base for long-term economic growth. You mean to tell me somebody's thinking logically in Massachusetts? Are you serious?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously someone's not, they went down.
And let's be real, Michael Lund has a marina.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so he doesn't want commercial vehicles
interest.
coming through there. He doesn't want them through it because it's going to detract from his boat shows and his members' ability to dock their boats and easy access to the river. He was great when the coal stopped coming in for the power plant. So now he's got to look at the fact that now we're going to bring in, fishing trawlers.
Well, it's nice to know the mayor went to Miami and had a video that posted on Facebook. Even though they're not going to have any control over this, the state's going to control. They're going to manage it, and so I guess there goes his we have to question his assertion that he's really friendly with the governor, because you'd think that if he was really friendly with the governor wouldn't have told him these plans are in the works and stop wasting your time going down a flood. Then again, you got a free vacation, so. I mean, no,
it wasn't free. I paid for it. You paid for it.
That's right. Well, free to him. Just like the car is. So it's like, but you look at the State Pier Committee as usual. It's always everything that's appointed is political, and that's the reason that when I see an attempt to make the mayor the ex officio member of every committee in the city, it just drives me crazy, because when I see stuff like that, as you said, Michael Lund was on a city council. The only thing he worried about was his business, and he's still just worrying about his business. So
that's all they ever worry about.
Stay angry and at least try to stay employed, please. We need to get up to 39,001.
Hey, it's always great to be here with you, and remember, we look forward to your tips because we investigate everything. Have a great weekend,
Have a great weekend.
Remember, stay angry.